Wondering how to build the business of your dreams? Today I'm joined by Price Rayner. We're going to give you the steps, the exact things you can do to have that business that you've always wanted. All right, Price, this is something that you and I have talked about over the years, and in reality, this is what we did in our own business. We really, literally wanted to put a plan together to provide for the lifestyle we were looking for. Let's go back and talk about this. How did this come about for you? I mean, we've all had coaches, we've all had people that were influential in our lives. How did this come up? And let's talk about the first couple of steps that you were taught and that you've always followed.
Sure. About 6 months into this business, back in 2001, had a phone call with a coach, decided to hire a coach to kind of help me set a good foundation for my real estate practice. And on our first phone call, he said, "What does the life of your dreams look like?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Go think about it, write it down, and we'll talk about it on our next call." And so I did that. I went and wrote down kind of, what, a life of my dreams would look like, all those things, and came back, and on the next call, he said, "Hey, did you get that done?" I said, "I did." And he said, "Okay, read them to me." And I read them to and he goes, "Well, how much does that cost?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, go figure that out and we'll talk about it on our next call." Right. I said, "Okay." So I went and I did that, and I assigned a value to each item, and came back on the next call, and he said, "Did you get your value?" I said, "I did," and told him that value, and he goes, "Good. Well, how are you going to get there?" I said, "I don't know." And I said, "Make calls, try to sell real estate." He said, "Okay, that's good." And he says, "How can you form a business plan around that?" I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Okay, good." He said, "Let's talk about that." So what we did once I came up with that value is he said, "Well, you've described in this life of your dreams what you want each day and kind of week and month and year to look like." And he said, "So how do we tailor your business to best support that?" And so he said, "Have you ever time blocked before?" And I said, "No, sir, I've not." He said, "I'm going to email you a sheet. I want you to look at it, and I want you to go back and begin to fill out the times that you have." He said, "I see here that you have some things around your faith and your family and fun and friends." He goes, "I want you to go back and take that and fill this sheet out with the time that you think it would take to enjoy those 4 items to their fullest each week." I said, "Yes, sir, I will." So I went and I did that. And then I came back and he said, "Okay." He said, I emailed it over to me, looked at it, he said, "Okay, good, we have a lot of time here left over." He said, "Now let's begin to put our work in here and begin to figure out how we can tailor work to generate enough money to fund the life of your dreams, and you're also actually living it now. You're not someone that's working to do it 10, 15 years in the future, sacrificing today, because the Lord knows we don't know how many todays we have. So not foregoing that for the sake of busyness, where we can actually implement this life that we want to have now and then backfill that with the time in which we should work." So to do that, we came to the understanding that my business would need to be largely listing driven, so that I could have control of my time. If I'm chasing buyers around, really they're kind of in control. You have to more or less acquiesce to when they like to go see property and work around their schedule. So you never really have control of, I wouldn't have control of my time to do the things I wanted to do. So that's kind of what we did. So he said, "I want you to go out and find 3 communities that you can begin to farm." He said, "I'd like for you to get one, we called it the home run community, where it would be a more high-end value, and 2 that I called bread and butter, that were kind of more price point sensitive, where there was more volume." I went in and looked at those things and determined areas that I liked, and we began to implement a process of farming those communities. First, obviously, I went and understood from a historical perspective, what's happened in there, and then what's happening now, and then we begin to tailor a program around how we would attack to penetrate each of those communities, because through doing the work, we came up with, he asked me, what is the average sales price in each of those communities? So we came up with those values and began to figure out exactly, what was my commission rate, figure out exactly how many deals I needed to do each year to live the life of my dreams, to fund that, the things we'd written down there. And then we just went from there to begin to determine, okay, look and make phone calls, and you can be as technical as you want going down to ratios. I don't know how you do that with online content now, but back then, I came up with a formula. I knew how many phone calls I needed to make on average to get an appointment, how many appointments I needed to get a showing or go to, to have a listing sell or get a buyer to contract. I knew all my numbers. So then I could simply go and know each day the number of activities I needed to do to subsequently fund the life of my dreams. I could break it down to that. And that was very motivational. It was very motivating for me, because I knew, okay, if I make 32 calls today and that's going to equate to, a listing appointment, and I need 4 listing appointments to get a listing appointment, and in community A, days on market were 62 days, I know I'd have a check in 62 days. So, I could begin to really tighten this down in a very specific way to what drove me and what I needed to do each day. And it goes back to the simple, wager, and it's called an if-then wager. If this happens, then this happens. I knew that if I go make these calls, then I'm going to get the chance to go on these appointments, and then I'm going to have a chance to convert these people and then service them in a manner that by providing a high level of service, my compensation was an ongoing relationship with them, and I got to pick up a check. And so that's kind of, Jimmy, how I went from, on a broad brush level in a 10-minute conversation, how we went from laying out the life of my dreams and what I wanted to do to daily activities to accomplish that. And in doing that, each October, I would modify that, the dreams or goals, I would modify it. And if I was consistent, I met or exceeded those goals and dreams every single year that I implemented this practice.
Yeah, and there's so many of these things we can get into too, is the subconscious mind. When you're writing these things down, it begins to notice opportunities that you didn't see before. Momentum begins to build. Your confidence begins to build, because you knew that you were going to meet those goals this year. Lord willing, if nothing dramatically changed, you knew it was, if I do these things, then this will happen. I think there's a big difference too. When you brought this up, I'd love for you to speak to this. Most people work at a sacrifice to their life. You wanted to live your life as a sacrifice towards what you did. Just you wanted to do what you need to do here. So for that, not vice versa. You want to speak to that in the presence of putting priority where it should be.
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly it. You once you lay out your life of your dreams, and you're looking at it for whatever it is for you. Mine was, faith, family, friends, and fun. Those were kind of when I looked at everything and I broke them down into 4 categories. That was it. So that's what I wanted my life to. I wanted to be able to enjoy those things. I didn't want to sacrifice it. So we had to work backwards to get there, because those things needed to come, not necessarily in that order all the time, but they needed to come before what I did, not putting the sacrificial lamb of my life on the altar for the sake of being a workaholic. Me, I have a lot of isms in my life, and it's easy for me to change one for another and to just say, because I did it at times. This was not perfect. There were times I worked and I sacrificed because that's what the season called for. I had to double my efforts and really get busy on the work front from time to time. But I always had this out there where I could go back and recalibrate and reorient and recenter and get those things back in a better alignment. And if I didn't have that, I would be operating one, based on emotion all the time, and two, just in a whimsical manner that I think our business leads us to by default, where we're in this reactive manner all so often, where if I can take some of that away, someone much smaller than me, smarter than I, called it the tyranny of the urgent. And that's what, when I first got in the business, I saw that I suffered from that tyrant. The urgent was my master. There'd be things come up and I would just be running around like the Bugs Bunny cartoon, the Tasmanian Devil, or a whirling dervish, just spinning. And I couldn't be all that God had called me to be, or anywhere close, by suffering from that. It was, all those things were my master. And I had to get control of my time to really be able to operate in a measured, consistent way to really grow a real estate practice in a professional, well-organized manner.
Yeah, and I think going back to the foundation of this too, accountability's played such an important part. It's one thing to have that plan, but it's also that, you and I mean, you've been that for me, and all of those, in a lot of those different areas, you know what I mean? And so I think having the plan and having it not just how many calls am I going to make, but why am I making these calls? I always viewed it like you said, there will be ebb and flow in seasons when I needed to work more or I needed to focus on my family more, but I had it anchored in a plan of action that if I drifted off, I could just, the tides would shift and I would drift back into into a place where I should be. I could recalibrate, so to speak. And I had people that could do that for me and continue to do that for me. But one of those things that I would say is that every area of your life, in my opinion, every area should have some accountability. I've never added accountability in my life. Sometimes it hurt. Sometimes I come in your office and you're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't need that right now, but I do need that right then. You know what I mean? So it's having those people that are around you in your business, if that's a coach, if that's a mastermind. We as a company, we have personal coaching that we do for agents. I have the group on Friday that I meet with agents and we talk about their business side just to have some of that accountability. Make sure, listen, it's one thing to put a plan together. It's one thing to start on it, but I will promise you, the whirlwind of this world, unless you have some way of being accountable to this or something that is somebody who is watching and helping with that, you're not going to be able to sustain that forever. It's just, you may have seasons where you're really on task, but add accountability in your life. Listen, the business of your dream is absolutely attainable. Some of the things that Price talked about building it with on the listing side. What is it you truly want? I think when you get down to the nitty gritty, you understand the reason why building a business based on listings is so valuable and so important. Now is the time to be building your ability to market properties, to put your listing presentation on lock, to do those things now, to be able to build those things. Anything else you want to add as we wrap up, Price?
No, I think everything you said there in conclusion is 100% correct, and I couldn't add any more to it. Accountability is the key, and then, to prospect, to do those things, to put people in the top of your funnel. That was when we looked at my time blocking. The main thing I did 4 days a week was prospect, follow up, and then Friday mornings, I called half my listings every Friday morning. Same thing you did. That practice right there, those are the big rocks. And then you have listing appointments, buyer's appointments. Those are also big rocks, but those are the end. This is the means to get you there. And then there's administrative functions and marketing functions. And a lot of that stuff we have to do, but as we build our practice and grow our team, we can take those things and delegate them to others so we get some time back to continue to focus on these other things. And having someone, as Jimmy said, to hold us accountable to these the daily practices we set up so that we have a high probability of meeting our goals is so invaluable, so valuable. It can't be replaced with any other function in your business.
No, I completely agree. Listen, I know you guys got some value out of this. The business of your dreams is available. You just have to lay it out, understand why it's so important to you, what those factors are, and then back in to the activities in your business to make that happen. I hope this has been helpful. If you found some value, reach out to Price and let him know, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.